Hello there, good afternoon and welcome to The Pulse. We are coming to you live from our studios here in Accra. You can catch us on digital terrestrial TV because we are free to air. Catch us live on DSTV channel 421 and GoTV channel 144. This is Joy News, independent, fearless and credible journalism. Coming up this afternoon on The Pulse, high-powered government delegation commences engagements at Nkranza in the Bono East region following clashes between aggrieved youth groups and the police in the area.
My policeman, I was a bit scared when I saw him with a gun. Yeah. Because you are not sure who pulled the next trigger, who fall victim.
We have the latest for you this afternoon as we also hear from the chairperson of the Bono East Regional Security Council, who is calling for calm, especially among the youth. And conservation group Arocha Ghana weighs into the alleged sale of the Echimota Forest Reserve, saying that more questions remain unanswered by the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources. We hear from the group right here on The Pulse. And also this afternoon, the race for the 2024 elections. National Democratic Congress set to commence its reorganization process in the coming days, as the party says it will from next week give the opportunity to floating voters to officially register as members of the opposition political party. I am blessed Sogah. This is The Pulse. The Pulse, as always, is brought to you by Global Communities Dignilu, affordable, safe sanitation. This afternoon, we're streaming live on YouTube and all of our social media handles. You can join us. It's at JoyNews on TV. Tweet at us with the hashtag The Pulse. My personal handle is at Blessed Sogah. Always a pleasure to host you here on The Pulse. And we start off from Nkranza. A high-powered delegation is commencing engagement there following clashes between the police service and some aggrieved youth groups in the area. The youth of Nkranza have been demanding justice for the 28-year-old Albert Akwesi Donkor, who is suspected to have been killed by the police in connection with an alleged robbery. Tempest actually fled yesterday after an 18-year-old Victor who also lost his life when the youth attacked a police station and freed some suspects. First of all, here's a report by Ohiming Tewia capturing the entire event as it unfolded yesterday.
Angered by the alleged killing of a 28-year-old trader and a footballer by the police, the youth of Nkranza, who had earlier suspended a protest march, vented their spleen on the local police headquarters.
We are not going anywhere until the police kill us all. Nobody.
They called off the march to give an ear to the paramount chief of Nkranza, Nana Kwame Bafo IV, who appealed for calm as he promised the support of the traditional council for speedy investigations.
If we get the culprits today, everything will be fine.
The demeanor of Nana Bafo, who echoed concerns of the youth, is one that portrays the feeling of insecurity among the larger population in Nkranza.
Even when I came today, my policeman, I was a bit scared when I saw him with a gun. Because you are not sure who pulled the next trigger, who fall victim. Nobody feels safe here. If the peacemaker is alleged to be committing this kind of crime, then you are not sure of yourself.
Few minutes after the meeting with Nananom, a session of the youth bent ties as they blocked a section of the main Nkranza Ejula Road in front of the police headquarters, whilst casting insinuations and aspersions on officers on duty. Perhaps that was a shadow of things to come as the situation escalated, with the police headquarters becoming targets of the youth who wore hoods to conceal their identity amid threat to journalists not to film their ads. They managed to flee suspects in police custody, including this man, who was remanded by an Nkranza court.
Police station.
The attack remained one-sided for several minutes until the arrival of a police reinforcement team. bent on taking the fight to police, stood their ground as they pelted the armed officers with stones and clubs. At least 9 persons who sustained gunshot wounds are receiving treatment at St. Teresa's Catholic Hospital. Reverend Father John Bremi is administrator of the hospital.
We have about 9 people who have suffered various injuries. Some have been sent to the theater to be operated on. The second one is on the table that they are working on. So I was told that one, the bullet, penetrated through the stomach. So I think they have to work on the intestines. And the other one, I think, was through the leg. So it has bled for many hours. Now at the theater that they are working on. And the last one at the emergency currently, there's a bullet at the chest. So it was in coma, and they have the resuscitation that have been done. So we hope that very soon they'll take him also as well to the theater to be operated on.
Police presence has since been increased to protect lives and property. From Granza in the Bono East region for JoyNews, Ohiminteria reporting.
Also, we understand that calm is beginning to return to the place. Meanwhile, the Regional Security Council is calling for calm as it assures there will be no cover-ups in the latest shooting incident. Joining us now via phone is the Bono East Regional Minister, Honorable Kwesi Edujan. Thank you so much, sir, for your time. So we know that it's been a long day for you. You've been engaging all stakeholders. How would you describe the fallouts from the meetings, series of meetings that you've been holding today? Honorable Edujan, if you can hear me, I'm asking about the engagements that you commenced today. How would you describe the meetings that you've held today?
Oh, by the grace of God, it's been very successful, been though hectic. I think this morning I went to the hospital to look at the injured and also to look at the gentleman who is currently at the morgue, the one who passed away during the crash. And then after that, also had a meeting with the Traditional Council and met also with the Deputy IGP and his team who came from Accra to Tichima. So I'm just moving back to Tichima as we are speaking.
And I can imagine and tell from your voice that you're not happy or pleased about the events that have been unfolding over the past 48 hours, right?
Yes, it is a very sad event. Nobody expected this. We have tried to contain this since Friday, when it was bound to happen. But we contained it on Friday, Saturday, and even Sunday. Until yesterday, we don't know what got out of hand. But what I want to say is that the police, until recently, the Bono East hasn't been a very good place in terms of security. The police have contributed a lot towards stability when it comes to robbery and other activities that were destabilizing the region. In fact, we are proud of them for the effort, for the excellent work that they have done. And we highly appreciate it. Mananum and the people of the region are all happy and excited about the work that the police have done. Yes. Right.
But there's a concern now about the latest shooting incident, about the 18-year-old who we're also learning of. The fear is if care is not taken, that may then escalate the situation, far from what you were seeking to do when you engaged all the stakeholders right from yesterday through to today.
Yes, in fact, yesterday we had engaged the stakeholders and have asked them that whatever grievances that they may have, they should pencil it down and then hand it over to me as their petition for me to take to the Minister for National Security. So for the past 3 days, the boys have been working on that. So they called yesterday morning and asked that I meet them at 12:30 for them to hand over. Prior to that, we have agreed that there is some information that they needed in respect to the guy the Donkos robbery issue. I didn't have that information. So in the meeting with the stakeholders and Nana Mahi, where we were waiting for them to come and present their document to us, for us to send to Accra, we got to know that the other part of the youth have been engaged, that we don't have any information to give to them and all that kind of stuff. And as a result, they were not happy with the engagement and wouldn't want the engagement to go forth as planned. So I think based on that, they got out, those out there, you know, even though their leaders were locked up with us in the discussion, we don't know how they got themselves into the police station. All what we got to know is that they have already invaded the police station and were setting the police station in frames. So immediately we put ourselves together with their leaders to go there and look at what is happening. All went. In fact, they have ransacked the police station. The police officers have parked themselves on the first floor, and the prisoners were released. Okay, so when we kept them apart from a little bit distance from the police station until we called for reinforcement.
Right.
So when the police reinforcement came, then myself and other executive members were able to get off and come back to Sudan and then leave it into the hands of the police. What happened is not the best.
But sorry to cut in. Was there an order yesterday for a shoot-to-kill approach? Because many of us were not expecting that such another shooting incident would occur right in the middle of an escalating situation. So who gave the orders for someone then to be shot?
In fact, immediately there were 4 exec members who were at the meeting with the youth leaders. So we moved there. And when we moved to the police station, some of the exec members engaged the youth in the discussion. So the youth were quiet and they were, on the other part of the road, whilst we were in front of the police station and trying to encourage the police and getting the police, out of the situation in which they did find themselves. So immediately the reinforcement came. I called for the police reinforcement from the Nanette Barry. I called the police commander that they should bring enforcement to come and rescue their colleagues at the Plaza police station. So who rushed there? So immediately the police from Techiman came, who withdrew, because we've been in Techiman for all that long time, and we thought it wasn't our work for us to be there.
Yes, but the question is about who gave the orders.
I don't know who gave the orders. I was not there when the orders were given. I had then left. Immediately the police commanders came. I left the scene for them to take over.
Obviously, you are the head of the Regional Security Council. What immediate steps are you taking now? At least we're learning that calm is beginning to return to the town. Are there some other measures, security measures, that will be rolled out in the coming days?
Yes, we have the police who have taken places in very vantage positions. The place is relatively calm. What we're trying to do is to make sure that those who are really involved in this situation are arrested. Because I personally think that it is not a fight for the justice of Albedonko people. It's not the agenda of that group. However, there are some bad criminal elements who have bad intentions or have some criminal motives or intentions who actually did this act. And they are just less than 1% of the Nkranza people. So we should make sure that these people are arrested and brought to book.
All right, then.
While we are doing this, then we should also engage the police and the various stakeholders to find a lasting solution in respect to Albedonko's issue.
I'm grateful for your time this afternoon here on The Pulse. That's Kwesi Edujan. He is the Bono East Regional Minister, giving us clear indications that he did not order the Ghana Police Service to go ahead firing into the mob yesterday. We'll still keep our eyes on that and bring you some updates in our subsequent bulletins. But it's time now to bring you back to the Greater Accra region, as conservation group Arocha Ghana has waded into the alleged sale of the Achimota Forest Reserve, saying that more questions remain unanswered. Land and Natural Resources Minister John Jinapor over the past 48 hours has been mounting a spirited defense for the latest decision to de-gazette the area as a forest reserve. You were speaking earlier on the Super Morning Show.
We can go into the report, and I'm sure there will be a very vivid and justifiable account or reason why that is so. We can do that. I don't have the whole file here with me.
You don't
but
have
it's something that I've even called for, actually.
Come again?
I see something I've called for. Because one or two people have drawn my attention to that, and I've called for the justification for it. There will be, because these things were not done overnight. These were thorough, long-standing negotiations and discussions with all kinds of variables. If you acquire somebody's land in 1927 and you are giving him land in lieu of compensation today, as you will agree with me, the value of land in 1927, if you do the extrapolation to 2022, but as minister, I don't pass judgment on this man. There are technical people at the ministry who do these evaluations and who present reports and make recommendations, and we move forward with that.
Okay.
But we can always go into that.
Yes, talking about going into the report.
Well, a lot of reactions are beginning to greet that. Earlier today, my colleague Samuel Kojo Brace visited the forest and met someone who worships there. She, together with some other Ghanaians, warned against the idea of selling off the forest reserve.
I think selling it will be a bad idea. It's not a good thing to sell the land, because when it rains, it's the forest that protect us. The trees and the how do you call it? The trees and stuff, they protect us. So if you have to sell the land, that will not make any good use to us. Yeah. So I don't think he selling it will be a good idea. No, he shouldn't.
All right then.
All right.
Okay, we are planting trees, right? So why do we sell the existing ones when we want to plant more? We should rather protect what we have and then build upon what we have, not rather destroying what had already been preserved. These have been preserved for ages. So why is it that today there's a need to destroy what we have protected for ages? It's not right to sell it.
Sure. Well, government says I'm not selling. I'm only giving the peripherals where already development have started to the family for some other development. What do you make of it?
Is it needful? Is it needful? It's not needful to even give out a portion of it. We are supposed to rather protect it, not to give part of it. We know it has been depleted to a way. We are supposed to rather protect what is left, not to give it out. So it's a bad idea. Even giving out the peripherals is a bad idea.
That's okay. That's good. That's good news. But selling it is not good, because the forest is here since long time, and I think it is a good place for us, as you are seeing the environment. Even some visitors has to come here to come and take some enjoyment for themselves. So I don't think it's good for selling it or to sell it.
Okay.
Well, a forest is a forest, you know. There shouldn't be anything like I'm giving some parts of it to individuals for them to use it to do something, okay? Because forest is reserve, understand? But then already you can see some activities already going on along the forest. So the government think there's nothing wrong giving those portions to individuals to use for their daily activities. So that's how the whole thing is like set up like.
And what do you make of that? Like, government thinks so there's the development is already taking place, so no need, let's move on. What do you think of that?
Well, it's not the best idea right now, I think so, because if some part is already given to some people, I don't think it will take that long for everything to be given to individuals with time. So they should put that idea aside of giving it to some people for them to use it and everything, blah blah blah. They should reserve the forest as it is. That's the best idea. Because looking at the ecosystem right now, a lot of places are losing their forests due to these activities. Giving some part to it. Before you realize, the whole thing is being taken over. So I think we should reserve it as it is and then let nature take its course.
Well, so the reaction on the street of Accra there, my colleague Samuel Brace engaging some of the residents earlier, but Arocha Ghana is wading into it, indicating that it's unjustifiable for government to even consider taking portions of the forest reserves and giving it as compensation to the original landowners. Well, joining me now is Daryl Bosu, Deputy National Coordinator and Director for Arocha Ghana. Thank you, Daryl, for joining us. Here we are today. Ghanaians are expressing worry already. Then Arocha comes through to say there's more that needs to be answered from the Lands Ministry. What's up on your mind with regard to exactly what it is that the Lands Ministry has to be telling Ghanaians?
Well, thank you very much. I think already I find solace in the fact that a lot of people already see that there is something wrong with this decision. And it is the same background that we think that the government needs to answer questions as to why, given the choice of securing a green belt in the city, they chose to rather cut it into bits and give some away. That is not justifiable. And like we said, we need the government to really let us know what informed this decision, who was involved in taking this decision. And I believe that such a decision, an executive instrument, will have gone with some administrative note, being informed by the Forestry Commission and even people at the Ministry of Lands. We have not. And from our own checks with other institutions and other people, nobody heard of this. So it's quite a surprise. And this is what we need government to let us know. When these discussions started, who was engaged, and how they reached this decision of the fact that their family deserve these areas. Now, we need to understand that.
But if you're saying, well, at least government has some response, it's clear now. The sector minister says the place has not been sold. It will not be sold. That should end the case, the discussion, isn't it?
No, you see, we are not concerned about the narrative the ministry is trying to ask and answer themselves. Nobody is saying that the forest has been sold. The fact that a portion of the forest has been given out, for us, is even a worst-case scenario. If you are selling a place like this forest, we will ask ourselves, selling it for what? You can sell the place and it will still be used as a forest reserve, managed by some other entity for either carbon services or for ecotourism purposes and all of that. But in this instance, the government is not selling. And of course, even now within the regime of law we have in the country, you cannot sell land. So there's no way that is even possible. But here is the case. If government had a choice to really decide what to do, why did government rather choose to sell, or not say sell, excuse me, why did government choose to give portions of the land, de-gazette it, and that is even more serious. So from its originally constituted site of 495, hectares, the government says, no, it is too big, let's give portions of it for redevelopment. And that is what is unfortunate.
Yeah, but the point is, don't you feel it's a matter of a reality check? The fact that Accra is growing in population size, there will be a need for some redevelopments to take place across the capital itself. Portions of that could be the Achimota Forest Reserve. You agree it's quite a huge and strategic piece of land?
I need to make a correction. Reality check has to deal with the fact that we as people in the city now have to deal with increasing warming incidents as a result of climate change. We are having discussions day in and day out within all the various sectors and ministries in Accra, talking about how do we address the increasing temperatures in the city. We are currently developing a national adaptation plan to address some of these issues, and the recommendation on the table is to increase the green spaces in the city. Strategically and likely for us, the Achimota Forest has been there for a long time. And please, it's not a big space. It's just about 5 square kilometers. And we are fortunate to have it. So we don't even see why it should be the target for every road construction, for every development, and for every redevelopment or new infrastructure in the city. We should look elsewhere. I mean, there have been discussions that if really we need to expand, as we say, then let's look to other regions for expansion and development. This is the only green belt we have now, and we have a responsibility to secure it for the well-being of the people. Now, Looking at it from the other side, they are going to redevelop parts of it into what? Real estate, concrete jungles. And how is that going to benefit anyone in the first place? It's just going to go into people's private pockets, and the whole city is going to lose as a result of that. So if you really look at it, there's no justification for thinking that it's a piece of forest, so it should just go away.
But give us a practical idea of this. What do we tend to lose really if such a land mass is used for commercial activities, or perhaps is redeveloped into something that could generate funds for the country?
So let's look at the scenario where increasing temperatures is leading to increasing diseases within the city. Already, people who live in parts of the city where we don't have a lot of trees, a lot of people, even people in kiosks and some makeshift facilities, are having to put up air conditions and all of that. Now, that is a cost we all have to bear individually.
Yeah, but Daryl, I don't I don't want to belabor the point, but you know that when you talk about temperature, when you talk about all of these technical stuff, a lot of people do not really connect to it when there's the issue of the economic opportunities out there coming on the table.
Well, I think that is...
Daryl, we appear to be having some challenges with your connection. Daryl is with Rocha Ghana, trying to give us their perspective on this matter. It appears that there's a challenge there, but what we do understand is that later in the day as well, there is obviously an exclusive interview with the sector minister, which will be aired on PM Express tonight. You might want to catch that and also get some more reactions to this developing story. A lot of you have also been commenting on this, both on social media and also speaking to us earlier. My colleague Samuel Brace was in the area, and what you see now on the screens clearly depicts the area that we are talking about, the Chimota Forest Reserve. But government is telling us now we'll be giving just portions of it. But Daryl, unfortunately, we've lost him there. We'll try and reconnect sometime later in the evening and expand this conversation further. But Daryl Bosa, I'm grateful that you've been able to join us here on The Pulse. Let's talk about corruption now. The citizens' movement against corruption is actually questioning why the security agencies and state prosecuted actually failed to question and also go ahead and ask the embattled Chief Executive Officer of the Procurement Authority, Ejeni Mboating Ejei, to go ahead and withdraw all of the amounts in his frozen accounts. According to investigative journalist Manasseh Azuri, the man that we're talking about emptied all his frozen bank accounts after a court lifted the freeze on the accounts on grounds of investigations into his alleged role over the JoyNews investigative piece contracts for sale. Now, according to information available to the Fourth Estate, the embattled chief executive was actually creating some companies and engaging in a number of dubious deals. While Shraj has been talking about the situation, they've made some findings on this, and you can have excerpts of what the Shraj findings were on the issue of AB Ejei. We'll just roll that for you and bring you excerpts of what it is that Shraj found against the embattled CEO for the Procurement Authority then, and some of the amounts that were lodged in his account. So you have that shortly coming your way, indicating clearly what Shraj has been talking about. So the first point is about the conflict of interest. We do understand that AB Ejei, together with the board chair, Dr. Emmanuel Yao Boakye, did put themselves in a position where their personal interest conflicted with the performance of their public functions as CEO and then as member of board for the PPA. So Dr. Emmanuel Yao is also a member of the PPA. Then in the case of AB Ejei, as we do know, his interest in TDL, a company with less than 3 years of experience or existence, yet won some considerable public contracts and then sold them without informing the awarding entity. And all of these activities, according to Shraj, did put him in a position of conflict of interest. But there's more in that report for you that we're talking about. There's also a point about Mr. AB Ejei also having having abused public office. The report clearly states that on 2 occasions, AB Ejei used his office as Chief Executive of the Procurement Authority to improperly alter the decisions of the board of the Public Procurement Authority in favor of this same company that we're talking about, TDL in which he has personal interest. But look at the third point. There's a third point which is connecting to the story that we're talking about. Now, the Shraj report is actually revealing that between August 2017 and August 2019, huge sums of cash deposits were actually made into ABAJ's account at the Universal Merchant Bank. So that's one of the accounts in question here, which has some amounts of over 5 million Ghana cedis in that very account, the UMB account that we're talking about. And out of the total deposits made into the account, Mr. AJ was able to explain the sources of only 86,000 Ghana cedis. So Shraj has therefore directed ABAJ to refund to the state over 5.6 million Ghana cedis. That's what Shraj is asking ABAJ to do. Now we know that Shraj also went ahead to make some directives, disqualifying, first of all, ABAJ from holding public office for the next 10 years. And then we know that a directive has been given which declares, which is asking him to declare his assets in accordance with Article 2861C of the 1992 Constitution within 3 months. And then finally, he's been directed, as we're indicating, to refund over 5.6 million Ghana cedis. But obviously, the question is, how would he refund the amount if investigative journalist Manasseh Azuri is telling us that some monies were withdrawn from all of these accounts? Well, the man himself, Manasseh Azuri, has been giving further details on the development. He spoke earlier in a Zoom interview.
My investigation, however, reveals a disturbing trade in government contracts. Even more disturbing are those behind it. There is a group of companies off the Manet Junction on the Spintex Road in Accra called the TDL Group. Talent Discovery Limited is its flagship company. This company has nothing to do with the discovery and development of talents, as the name might suggest. This is where the fates of the Chamba Road and other government contracts are held. Talent Discovery Limited is alleged to be using its political connections to win government contracts and then sell them.
So what is your company name?
Richard Kumadra met the general manager of the TDL Group, Thomas Amwa. Mr. Amwa signs the contracts on behalf of TDL. He took notes on our fake business and proceeded to talk about the number of contracts at hand.
There have been people interested in the project. Actually, some have dropped checks.
Okay.
But I am key to people like the project.
Okay.
Because if it goes wrong, it tarnishes the image of your company.
Okay. Okay.
So they are outstanding by it because the terms of it is very, very favorable. And everybody will want to do it.
Okay.
The contract.
Yes, that's what I was going to ask.
The 158,000 dollars.
158,000.
Okay. So can we please?
Okay.
Well, so as of there of the contract for sale documentary at which the investigative journalist himself, Manasseh Azuri, has been giving some updates on, indicating that the embattled CEO, and former CEO I should be calling him now, of PPA, ABHA, withdrew some amounts from the questionable accounts. Well, he says that has been done after the court lifted some sanctions on the accounts. Listen.
Supposed to have the freezing order working expired, and the resignation of Martin Amidu and the stalemate that followed resulted in the stalling of the investigation. And so in that intervening period, he went to court and got his lawyers to argue, and the court granted his wish. And what we have also been told by our sources is that the Financial Intelligence Center could have also put or applied for a freezing order, by which time the Special Prosecutor's Office would have reconstituted itself and continued with the investigation and perhaps gone to court with the case. So this is why he was able to get all the monies in his accounts out. And we are talking about so much money that went into the account. We had about $4.6 million, 15
or so million Ghana cedis and 54,000 euros in 3 separate accounts, Aisha.
So what does this actually mean to the case we investigated by the special prosecutor?
Well, I don't think it will affect the substantive case. What will be difficult, perhaps, is getting him to return the money if the court finds him guilty or if that is pursued. It will be easier to get all the monies if they were frozen in accounts. The state could just get those monies transferred from ABAJ's account to accounts of the government after whatever legal processes that needed to be done. But now that the money has been taken, nobody knows where he has kept those monies. And so even if there's a court order today for him to return the money, I don't know how easy it will be for the government of Ghana to trace and then get everything that ever passed through his account, which he could not satisfactorily explain to the Office of the Special Prosecutor, Shraj, and any other investigative body that may have handled this case. So for the substantive case, I think there is nothing that is going to impede the investigation.
Well, so that's investigative journalist Manasseh Azuri. Well, the Citizens Movement Against Corruption is also wading into this matter. Joining us now is co-chair of the group, Adam Senano. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us this afternoon. So, well, this is where we are today. It appears that there's no money as we speak in their account. But Shraj says those funds have to be giving back to the state. So how do we go after the monies now?
Well, thank you. It's really curious. I was just reflecting, and I do know that the special prosecutor is supposed to have an assistant special prosecutor. And so I was wondering, shouldn't the assistant, in the absence of the special prosecutor, have proceeded to court to ensure that the lifting of the embargo could not have been executed? And I'm also wondering what arguments were made in court and who was there to speak on behalf of the state who had put this embargo there in the first place. So it's really, in terms of the institutional arrangement, there's a major concern, because if it's happened once, it could happen again. And we don't want a situation where so much effort is put into investigation. Institutions of state have found that there's something that has gone wrong, and we're waiting for the prosecution to be done so we have clarity on the next steps. And the man is able to empty the accounts. That's really, really unfortunate. As Manasseh has said, it definitely means there's a more uphill task. Assuming at the end of the prosecution, you find that these sums are largely monies that should be back in the coffers of the state. You now have to try and find ways of either garnishing property or, and that does not make our task easier. It would have been much better that we had protected the sums of money that had been frozen and ensured that they were available after the case for whatever decisions that had been taken.
And I guess now the Office of the Special Prosecutor, at least we're told, is an office not created just for an individual. So someone should have been acting then. The Office of the Special Prosecutor then comes under scrutiny, right?
It does. In fact, two things come under scrutiny. It took so long for government to put in place, to get a place for Martin. And that in itself is part of the difficulty, because one has to look at the timelines to see, when did Mr. Kisi Ajabeng get in? Was it after the fact? Because it appears as if this happened between the time Martin resigned and then this thing expired and before Kisi Ajabeng came in. If it happened whilst Mr. Kisi Ajabeng was in office, then there's a substantive case. But beyond that, the question is, this is an office that's supposed to have an assistant special prosecutor. What was that person doing?
We know at least she was just acting anyway.
Yeah, but acting, you should be clothed with the, acting should give you the authority to go on a matter as important as this to argue that, no, please hold on till the substantive case is done, so that we don't incur double jeopardy because the person has taken all the money and we can't even fight. Because that meant that then really all the effort put into making sure that that money was held until the case is lost. So it's really difficult to understand how we found ourselves here. And we actually wondering what the courts too were thinking at the time. What were the arguments that allowed all the monies to be withdrawn?
How do we go out of this, really? And I guess that's the question on the minds of a lot of Ghanaians. At least we're getting a sense that Strat says some of the amounts, he did not explain how those amounts came into the account. And so some of the funds have to be giving back to the state. So that's a concern, I guess, of many Ghanaians out there.
I think that the Special Prosecutor's Office needs to speak up on this matter. It's a matter that the office was seized with. It's a matter that was in court. If Mr. ABIJ had gone whilst we didn't have a substantive head to have the embargo lifted, it is one of the issues that ordinarily should have seized the attention of the current Special Prosecutor as soon as he got into office. Somebody must have reported that this action has been taken by the lawyers of ABIJ and it has implications. And so, in my view, he would have had time to examine the documentation. And it's important to give a public statement on what transpired and what the office is going to do in order to ensure that beyond the prosecution, assuming the courts find the same kind of findings that Trad suggested, how do we make sure that we get what is due the state back for the good citizens of this country?
And if you look at the setup of the Office of the Special Prosecutor, clearly they are working on delegated powers from the Attorney General's department. The Attorney General, obviously within that period when there was no substantive appointment, could at least have acted and prosecuted ABIJ.
I don't know about the legal arrangements. We probably need a legal mind on this, whether, because it's one of the things that in trying to set up the office we're cautious about. They didn't want a situation where there's interference from the AGs. We wanted the Special Prosecutor to have its independence and autonomy.
Right.
So whether that action could have been taken up by the AGs, I'm not quite sure.
But crime is crime, you do agree. Independently, the AG could have gone ahead and done something about the case, knowing so well that the Special Prosecutor wasn't available at the time.
I believe that's an argument that is logical. Whether in terms of the legal arrangements it's possible is something we should explore. But it makes sense to say that, yeah, crime is crime and so on and so forth. Just that one wants to be sure that you don't set precedents which mean that in subsequent cases, the AGs could decide that, okay, this man is on leave or is not available, we think we must do this. And the arguments on the floor of the court may then change. So on one hand, it may be a good thing. On the other hand, it could create confusion. So it ought to be explored and the legal arrangements made sure that we are not weakening the capacity of the Special Prosecutor to prosecute his agenda in the future.
Are we likely to see any action from the Citizens Movement Against Corruption, perhaps a petition to the Special Prosecutor asking for some updates on this case particularly?
I think that if in the next week, if by the end of the next week, we don't have a Special Prosecutor giving us an update on what exactly has gone on and what they intend to do, we certainly will then raise the issue.
And then there's the bigger picture about contracts for sale. I'm not sure ABIJ necessarily is ending that phenomenon within public service. Looking at, I mean, your findings and some of the activities that you've been following within the public service itself, do you still believe that this is an act that is very pervasive that we need to deal with collectively?
Well, to be honest, it was shocking. The footage from Manasseh and his team was shocking. I mean, the ease with which that discussion was going on. I'm not quite sure that I know we from the footage it looked bad, but to call it pervasive probably would be more speculative than factual. I think that on a case-by-case basis, we need to, wherever this occurs, unearth it, like Manasseh did, and make sure that whichever corporates or persons are involved, we bring them to book. Because obviously, you can't have that happening without an escalation in the actual cost of projects that are due to the citizenry. And what it means is that you are going to get poor quality, and people are just pocketing money that ordinarily should be used for other things. So, the pervasiveness probably is something that we need to do some more research on in order to draw a conclusion on.
Yeah, be that as it may, government policy measures generally in tackling or blocking the loopholes, I guess it's something you'd want to see enhanced significantly.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a major concern where year in, year out, the Auditor General's report highlights things, and in subsequent years, you see the same things going on. Whether we have the audit committees that are supposed, implementation committees that are supposed to be working or not, we need to tighten those aspects of between the Auditor General's report, the ARIC actions, and getting persons in public service to be held accountable for monies lost, monies that have been misapplied. A lot more work ought to be done there, because if you look at the sums that are being quoted in these annual reports, they are monies that would definitely have contributed substantively to the economic development of the nation.
Anyway, we'll have to leave it here. Adam Senano, thank you for joining us. He's co-chair of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption. Now, Alliance of Civil Society Organizations on Extractive Anti-Corruption and Good Governance is kicking against the current state of the Ejapa royalty deal reintroduced by government. According to the CSOs, information available to them indicates that government intends to sidestep Parliament to have the deal passed. They are warning to proceed to court if it happens and call on the President to avail himself for public discussion. My colleague Samuel Mbura has details of the story.
Ejapa will float up to 49% on the London Stock Exchange to be in the business of financing mining infrastructure and assets in Ghana and across the world. It was initially incorporated as Assassin Royalties with the responsibility of channeling mineral royalties offshore. This was met with a huge public outcry, leading to its suspension. Addressing a press conference where 24 CSOs have combined forces to fight the Ejapa deal, Vice President of Imani Ghana, Kofi Bento, said the move by government is not only inherently illegal, but patently wrong and morally reprehensible.
If the current posture of the Finance Ministry to evade public discussions on the Ejapa transaction stands contrary to the President's commitment before the 2020 national general elections for a broader national consensus on the transaction. So before the election, the President promised that there will be a broader national consensus. That is different from somebody coming and lecturing you about why they will do what they intend to do, whether you like it or not. So the President promised a broader national consensus. We are not getting that. The Minister prefers that the public focuses on the process, not the substance and the propriety of the transaction. Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome the invitation to discuss the process of the Ejapa transaction. However, this coalition will also stay with the substance of the transaction and better explain to the Ghanaian people why we think the Ejapa royalty transaction is terrible for the country.
The CSOs cannot fathom why the current secret posture of the Finance Minister on the Ejapa royalties deal is now in contradiction of the President's commitment before the 2020 general elections about building national consensus on the transactions.
Ejapa is also inherently illegal because our Constitution says the President holds our minerals in trust for the citizens of this country. Holding it in trust means the minerals, including the gold, are not the President's property, and they are not property of the government, whichever government is in office. And so, if you are going to do anything with property that you hold in trust, the agreement needs to be sent to Parliament for proper approval as the representatives of the people. We are told that this new revised Ejapa deal will not be sent to Parliament. That is inherently illegal. And we wish to sound a caution that if the renewed Ejapa deal, whose details are being kept secret as we speak, because we are yet to see it officially, if it does not return to Parliament, we will be forced to go to court to have it declared illegal and that it cannot proceed. And I would add, we are already speaking to our friends in London to make sure that whatever is done to prevent the listing of Ejapa in London should be done. It is also patently wrong and morally reprehensible that the government will pass tax laws for everyone to follow, but send its state investments offshore to escape the tax laws and regulations it has installed for others. Why would anyone seek to escape taxes in a nation when the taxes belong to citizens and the assets also belong to citizens? The only sensible reason a state entity will be placed beyond the taxation and regulatory regime of a nation will be if its profits accrue to some people and not the state. This is why we should domicile everything and make it subject to the law of Ghana.
The Alliance of Civil Society Organizations on Extractive Anti-Corruption and Good Governance is therefore challenging President Akufo-Addo to avail himself for a thorough debate on the future of Ghana's mineral income. Samuel Mbura reporting for JoyNews.
Also, it's time now to do some politics. The National Democratic Congress is set in motion its reorganization process. Now, the party says it will from next week give the opportunity to floating voters to officially register as members of the party. The process, later to begin next week, will pave way for a number of intervention and internal activities which will culminate in the elections of the flag bearer to contest the 2024 presidential elections. Well, in a Twitter post, the NDC argues that, quote, "We are a people-centered, development-oriented political party. Join us now." So, well, why is the NDC asking for more members to join them? Joining us on phone is George Opariado. He is the National Youth Organizer for the NDC. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. So here we are. It appears that you've started your reorganization process. So why are you asking more and more members, first of all, to join the NDC?
That for every political party, it thrives on membership. So once in a while, the NDC opens up its registration processes so that new members who wish to join the NDC join. There are a lot of young people who have turned 18, so you are not allowed to join any political party. The last time the NDC opened up its register was in 2018. So in 2022, if we open up the register, then we must encourage many more people to join, especially first-time voters. And like I said, every political party thrives on membership. So yes, we are asking new members to join. There are other people who were members of the NPP, who were members of the PNC, APC, who are disgruntled and are not happy with happenings within their political party and are looking for new opportunities in joining new political parties. And the NDC has availed itself. So we're asking new members to join. We're asking people who are not too political, who wants to get involved politically to join. And we're also asking everybody who wants to see a better Ghana, everybody who wants to see Ghana state, everybody who wants Ghana to work again, to join shoulders to the wheel and join the NDC so we can help change this inept, this corrupt, and this dishonest NPP administration led by Mahmoud Bawumia and Akufo-Addo.
Well, but I guess the question to the NDC is the party still attractive? Particularly to the youth. You, for instance, as the National Youth Organizer for the NDC, how attractive is your party as we speak?
In 2016, the NDC went to the polls as a party in government. We only managed 44% of the total. We managed 44% of that. We only got 44% out of that election. We got 106 seats in Parliament. In 4 years, between 2017 to 2020, we managed to turn over our fortunes by grabbing 137 seats in Parliament. If not for some machinations, we would have gotten close to about 140 seats in the Parliament of Ghana. Clearly, this tells you how attractive the NDC has and how we've been able to rebrand and reposition the party. Secondly, we got 44% in the last election. We're still content that we didn't lose the 2020 election because per our calculations and per our compilation, nobody got a 50+1. So we contested at the highest level. And I can confidently tell you that today, go to all tertiary institutions across the country. See, the wing that is in charge of student activism for the NDC is the most attractive, most influential, and most popular student groupings on campuses. Apart from that, the number of young people that joined in the movement in the last election to support and volunteer to join the NDC clearly positions us as the party for the future and the party for young people. So yes, to your question, the NDC is very, very attractive. And the number of people, we launched the National Same app last month, in March. Today, we have over 40,000 members who have registered on the app alone. That tells you the number of tertiary students who find the NDC attractive and wants to be a part of the NDC.
And I guess you do agree that what will be critical in the 2024 elections will be about the teeming mass of youth. The demographics obviously tells us that clearly you would have to mobilize the youth base to support the NDC if indeed you are interested in winning political power come 2024. What strategies are you putting in place as the youth wing of the party to achieve that?
We are not oblivious of the fact that the data clearly spells out that we have a more youthful population. And as a political party that is youth-oriented, we are looking at making sure that we recruit a lot of more young people. As for our strategies, I'm not sure I'm going to discuss strategies on radio, but what I can assure you is that we have laid down cogent measures with strategies that are going to attract any more young people to the NDC. I'm sure for the first time, the NDC have not gone on the registration drive that are widely publicized, like what you are hearing. And clearly, this is one of the initiatives we've put out. Like I mentioned, the chain drive, what we've done to reposition things in our various campuses. And you can check as a journalist, you can get your media men in the various regions to tell you and update you on activism on our various campuses. So a lot is happening, but also day-to-day strategy or whatever we are doing in terms of strategy, I'm not sure it is for me to discuss it on radio or TV. But what I can assure listeners and viewers is that the NDC is positioned properly to rescue this country and save Ghana from the claws of this inept and dishonest administration that we have and we call a government.
Anyway, I guess it's up to the people to also decide to join the NDC. But if there's any one reason why someone should opt for the NDC today, what would you say that reason should be?
The NDC is a political party that stands for Ghana. The NDC doesn't care where you come from. It doesn't care which religion you belong to. It doesn't care what tribe you come from. The NDC makes opportunities available for all Ghanaians. The NDC is the only political party that builds Ghana as it stands today. Look at the local economy. Find out how much control Ghanaians have in the local economy. We've ceded almost everything we have to foreigners. The NDC believes in Ghana and supports Ghanaians' growth. And if you're a young person looking for opportunity, a government that will not discriminate, a government that can help you realize your dreams, then that political party is the biggest political movement called the National Democratic Congress.
Anyway, we'll have to leave it here. I'm grateful that you've been able to move out of your meeting and talk to us. That's the National Youth Organizer for the NDC, George Opare-Addo. Meanwhile, we understand that some moves are underway to form a broad consultation or a coalition that will actually challenge the NDC and the NPP in the 2024 elections. That's according to the Economic Fighters League, a radical Nkrumah's group, as they call themselves, which is actually focused on economic independence. Joining us now via Zoom is Hadi Yakubu, Fighter General of the EFL. Thank you for joining us. So here we are. You are seeking to break the duopoly. The NDC says, well, we're also reorganizing, massing up our people so we can be a better alternative in the 2024 elections. Why do you say that Ghanaians are fed up and would have to opt necessarily for your new movement?
Thank you very much, Bless, and God bless you, Bless. I think George spoke for his party, and I think I was expecting that you correct some of the things that he said when he said that the NDC is a party that cares about the ownership of the economy in local hands. In fact, what we have right now currently is the doing of 30 years of mismanagement by both NPP and NDC. And if you look at even the track record of Rawlinson's structural adjustment programs, which actually on a very large scale continued the divestiture and wanton dissipation of Nkrumah's state-owned enterprises that was started by the National Liberation. I mean, this dissipation was started by the National Liberation Council and then continued on a very massive scale by Rawlins for the military regime that was even continued when he transitioned into multi-party electoral, rule. And then Kufuor came and continued the sale. You remember the famous sale of Ghana Telecom together with all its accessory institutions, including the Ghana Technical University College, and all everything that we've seen under Kufuor. Then came Mills and Mahama, and it all continued. None of them. The thing is, when they are in a position, and today we've seen what Akufo-Addo is doing. Akufo-Addo, what we've seen is that when they are in opposition, whether it is NPP or NDC, they are very good in diagnosing the problems of the country and proffering solutions and positioning themselves as the messiahs and the best thing that could ever happen to this country. But when they get into power, everything changes. It's almost as if they are no longer the smart people that they were during opposition. We all know what Akufo-Addo and the NPP said when they were in opposition. Now, we've all seen the hardship, we've all seen the economic mismanagement, the wanton stealing that is continuing under the NPP regime. So if you look at these two political parties, everybody is now very clear in their minds that what we are dealing with is a serious class issue where the big people in the NPP and the big people in the NDC are in the same class and they are protecting their class interests. The NPP is the paid government and NDC is the paid opposition. The paid government, the paid opposition is responsible for making sure that the paid government does not bring hardship to the people. But
Hadi, I guess it's not entirely.
But what do we see?
How do you agree that it's not entirely a bad story all throughout the democratic journey of the Fourth Republic? At some point, even in 2011, for instance, under the NDC administration, we recorded one of the highest levels of economic growth when we became.
Let me stop you there, Bless. Let me stop you there.
In the world, you agree? The NPP has, of course, done a few other things that you will agree with as good policies. So is it entirely the case that they've done nothing to help this country? Is that your argument?
Stop you there, but out of courtesy, I allowed you. You see, the 2011 growth, and one of the things that the upper class uses to bamboozle the people is the GDP growth, economic growth. That means absolutely nothing to the people. And why do I say that? The 2011 growth of 14%, actually, the so-called highest growth in the world, what accounted for it? What accounted for it was because oil was coming on stream for the very first time. That is what accounted for it. Now ask yourself, where was the oil going? 83% of that oil belongs even till date to foreign multinational companies, whereas Ghana is only getting peanuts. And if you go to the gold sector, if you go to manganese, bauxite, all the minerals that we own in this country, the environmental degradation and deterioration in the communities that harbor these minerals is something that cannot be spoken about. And then all the money that is taken out of these is sent away by the connivance of these MPP and NDC compradors who get their cuts and make sure that this economy remains the way it is. So if you say that it's not all doom and gloom, I would agree with you to the extent that it's not been bad for them. It's not been bad for them, but it's been very, very, very bad for the people in the lower classes.
Oh, I get the point you're making. Yeah, I get the point you're making. But when the opportunity, and I'm sorry, Hadi, for coming through, when the opportunity presents itself for Ghanaians to vote, they do otherwise. You're complaining that, well, the middle class, those at the lower level are not feeling it. But when they go to the polls, they don't even vote for a third political party aside the NDC and the MPP. Look at the last elections. The third political party did not even cross 10% of the votes. So what magical steps are you going to put in place just to change that narrative within the next 2 or 3 years that you have?
I have an opinion. We think that you see the people, those smaller parties that you've talked about, we all know, in all honesty, that how many of them really contest the elections to win? They contest the elections to become appendages of either MPP or NDC. And this is a fact that many people do not want to say, because it sort of gives a cover, a blanket to cover the sham of multi-party democracy. But clearly, they do not enter these elections to do anything. What we are coming to do is not to come and repeat what these so-called smaller political parties have been doing. What we are building is a broad coalition of individuals of various political persuasions and social backgrounds, economic and religious backgrounds, who are absolutely fed up with the NPP and NDC duopoly and what they've done with this country, and want an alternative. We are not going to, the approach that we are adopting is not to go straight to presidency, because that, again, doesn't speak well of political strategy.
Right.
We want to target specific parliamentary seats and fight with all tooth and nail to make sure that we secure these seats for independent candidates who are of integrity, who are smart and compassionate, and who have Ghana at heart. And once we secure those, we are going to make sure that from within, with the power vested in them, we are able to push forward the changing of the system through the changing of the...
Right, I'm sure that you've tested the grounds already. Right, and I'm sure that you've spoken to some Ghanaians on these ideas that you're telling us about. Are Ghanaians really accepting your message?
Absolutely, absolutely. What we are doing now is in two folds. We are continuing a massive grassroots mobilization into the Economic Fighters League, but at the same time, we are talking to so many groups, and you would be amazed at how many, especially young people in various groupings, who you might not even consider to be political in any way, who are very, very upbeat about joining any form of coalition that will throw away the NPP and NDC duopoly. And we have spoken to several, dozens of them, day in and day out. We go into meetings, either virtually or physically, across the country, trying to build this as a grand coalition. And it doesn't matter. There are some members, there are some people who are even members of MPP or members of NDC. They say that, well, their members of parliament have not done anything, and they are not very happy with what they've got as their lot under NDC and MPP, and therefore they would like to change course. So even though they remain members of NDC or MPP, they want to see something different, and they are joining the coalition.
Okay, give us a sense of the target. Yeah, give us a sense of the target that you have. So by 2024, say how many members of parliament are we likely to see, or candidates are we likely to see contesting? How many persons are you fielding going into the 2024 elections?
I would not want to put the cart before the horse, or is it the other way around? They say it's a coalition, and therefore it is not just our expectations that will shape the political strategy that goes into the elections. So these are, you know, if you have a broad coalition of people from different backgrounds and political leanings, you would have discussions about approaches and things like that. So long as the goal remains the same, approaches to reaching the goal can be discussed internally.
Right.
And then we will unveil everything for everybody to
Hadi Yakubu, we need to go. But for instance, if someone walks to you right now and tells you that you're wasting your time, go back home and sleep on this political dream, what should we say?
We are not wasting our time. And I think that the results in 2024 will come and show. Because the kind of work that we are doing, we are very silent about it, and we are adopting a submarine approach. And the kind of work that we are doing underground is something that will speak for itself when we finally unveil it. And we are basing everything on sound political ideology and strategy, and also serious research and data that is going on. I don't want to, I know journalists, you want me to reveal a lot, but I'm not under any authorization to reveal that much. But as soon as things are cleared and we have the go-ahead, everything will be made known in series of press conferences and press releases.
All right, then, let's see.
We're working towards
right. Hadi Yakubu, I'm grateful. He's with the Economic Fighters League, joining us here on The Pulse. We'll return shortly after this break. We have some more stories coming your way. Please stay. And you're welcome back to The Pulse. Now, there's no justification nor whatsoever for a broadcaster to be assaulted simply for doing his work. These are excerpts of a strongly worded caution from the Information Ministry condemning yesterday's attack on Elmina-based radio station Brenya FM in the Central Region. Some unknown person stormed the station last Monday, attacking the radio presenter on air for discussing matters of non-availability of premixed fuel and how those who are not fisher folk were giving the product to the detriment of fishermen in the area. Now, although the municipal chief executive for the community was accused of sponsoring the attack, he denied the claims, saying that crime is a crime.
As the incidents happened, I had a call from the owner of the radio station, which has been my friend for the past 15 years. And some people have gone to the station to alleging that they've gone to vandalize some comments passed by the presenter then on a particular program. But prior to that, I had called him because we had wanted to schedule a meeting 5 o'clock to meet to talk about Elmina and development as well. Also complained to him that appears to be that the guy presenter has a purpose just to malign me, malign the government, and malign every inch of activity the government is doing. So I reported to him as a friend, and he said he was going to investigate and get back to me. When he got back to me, he indicated that this is what actually transpired. So what I told him that he should first of all report to the police. So I directed that he should report the police. And I also directed that police commander that this is what has happened. So he should go and investigate so that we see the outcome of the investigation. Then whoever was found culpable, the law will deal with the person. And I know, and I'm very optimistic that my police command is a very hard-working person. And will make sure that any name that is mentioned associated with the matter will be arrested, investigated, and thereafter, if they find culpable, they will be prosecuted according to the law. No, so so everybody comes to me. Why is it that consistently they always want to link something against my person? I was at the Patasi this morning with the Angel TV program. And indeed, you were there. If they were my boys, yesterday you were with me. Did anybody come to me to say that, oh, Chief, me a boy, so can you give me fuel? So these are some of the things that sometimes people do, and we don't treat crime as a separate crime from an individual. And that's a deliberate attempt, and as I've said, once the presenter had claimed, I will write to the National Media Commission, I will ask my lawyers to advise me on this, because something had happened. Ask his boss, Manoma, who asked him to go and report the police.
Also, that's the MC for there. In the last few hours, we know that the Ghana Journalists Association has released a statement calling for action on the attack of the journalists. Well, let's bring you excerpts of the demand that the Ghana Journalists Association is making on this one, and you have that right on your screens now, indicating clearly it's a statement from the Central Regional wing of the Ghana Journalists Association. It talks about the fact that the regional branch of the Ghana Journalists Association is urgently calling on the police administration to expedite investigations into attacks on its members and media houses, and the media house, I should say, at Elmina, by alleged political party thugs in the region. Now, on Monday, 16th of May, 2022, Eric Blessing Eshan of Elmina-based Brenya FM was brutalized and studio equipment vandalized by a group of alleged NPP supporters during a live discussion on fishing and premix fuel distribution in the Commander Edina Eguafo constituency. Now, the group was apparently incensed by the accusations of discrimination in the premix fuel distribution on partisan lines. Now, the GJA goes ahead to talk about the fact that it recalls with utmost disgust the attack on Prince Aqua, a journalist with the Ghana News Agency, a similar incident which occurred on May 2, 2022, while recovering the Ejumako Enyan Esian, while actually covering the Ejumako Enyan Esian NPP constituency executive elections at the Ejumako campus of the University of Education, Winneba. Now, Mr. Aqua, who was filming an altercation that ensued at the venue of a transport allowance for delegates, that's when he was attacked. Now, barely a minute after filming the heated argument, a mob from the party furiously accosted and physically assaulted Mr. Aqua, claiming he was a spy or agent of the opposition National Democratic Congress. Although the matter was reported to the Ejumako police, no action has been taken against the perpetrators. Now, the two separate incidents by the alleged party thugs have left the GJA wondering whether the perpetrators have taken any caution from Ghana's abysmal performance on the latest World Press Freedom Index. Now, the GJA Central Region makes it clear that it will not tolerate any form of hooliganism or intimidation of its members by any political party. And then it goes on to talk about the fact that such anti-media and anti-democratic acts must be punished, of course, after full-scale investigations to deter others and other offenders from engaging in such an act. Well, Richard Kojo-Nyako has been following this for us. Fortunately, he's joining us via Zoom. We'll be bringing you a statement from the Information Ministry shortly. But Richard, if you can hear me, that's the condemnation that we're getting from the GJA in the Central Region. I'm sure that you've been following it up on the story. What's the latest update on this matter?
So the latest is that in the morning, one of the three suspects in this case was arrested by the Elmina District Police Command, and so he's in their custody. When he was arrested, he admitted to the offense, but said that the journalist or the presenter at Benya FM mentioned their name and accused them of engaging in something that they did not do. And that is why they rushed to the station and did what they did. And so the police are currently holding him. They are also on a hunt for the other two suspects that are currently, they say they are currently on the run. And so that is the latest we have. Yesterday we had an interaction with the MCA, and he categorically denied that he knew these people and that they were beneficiaries of the premix fuel distribution. If you know, the premix fuel is in short supply now. The fishermen have been very, very concerned about the rate at which premix fuel is supplied to the landing beach committees. And so the little that comes, they will not take it very kindly for people that are not fishers to also take advantage of the system. What they do is that when they buy, they are given, because they are not fishers and they are not canoe owners, when they are given, they hoard them and then in turn sell it to the fishers at an exorbitant price. And so it's been a matter of a national concern.
Right, let's talk about the radio station itself. Are they back in operation? Are they still broadcasting as we speak?
Well, so they are still off air because of the alleged vandalism that took place at the place. So they are still working on the equipment. The police went there to take what would help them in their investigation. And so I presume that any moment from now, they should be back on air. But currently, they are off air.
Richard, just hold on for me briefly. I'm sure that you've been getting a lot of the concerns from your members in the region as well, culminating in the statement that we're seeing from the GJA Central Region. But the Information Ministry also a couple of hours ago issued a statement from the PR unit on this matter. We can now bring you details of that statement, excerpts to you, as we also juxtapose that to the demands that the GJ is making. So let's bring you the Information Ministry's perspective on this matter, which is, of course, asking any person who's against the work or having issues with the work of a journalist to seek a legal avenue to redress. Now, let's bring you excerpts of that statement right away. So you have excerpts indicating, first of all, that the Information Ministry notes with concerns reports of an attack which happened on Monday, obviously indicating how Blessing, a presenter with Brenya FM, in Elmina was attacked. Now, the statement goes ahead to talk about the reports that the Information Ministry has, and then talks about the fact that already the Deputy Minister, Fatimatu Abubakar, has spoken to the manager of the station and the district police commander, both of whom are working together to investigate the incident and then ensure that suspects are brought to book. Now, this is the strongest part of the statement for me. It indicates that there is no justification whatsoever for a broadcaster to be assaulted simply for doing his work. Any individual or group with a grievance against a broadcaster's or journalist's comments, or indeed any individual, must follow legitimate and legal avenues to seek redress, including the right of rejoinder, which is guaranteed under the 1992 Constitution. Now, the National Media Commission and the courts also constitute legitimate institutions to register complaints against the media practitioners and their companies as well. Then it wraps up by talking about the fact that when or where content has the potential, of course, content or material to breach security, the police may be informed to take appropriate legal action. And then the ministry concludes by saying that it condemns the attack and assault on this very reporter. So, Richard, that's what we're getting from the Information Ministry as we speak. You've been engaging leadership of GJA as well on this matter. What's their reaction to government's position on this?
They act as unfortunate, coming on the back of the recent index that, we did not fare well on. And so they say that if a journalist or any presenter of a radio station does something and anyone is not happy, there are some clear procedures for addressing such grievances. And so they did not understand why the matter happened on Monday. And then as of now, it is only one person that has been arrested. And so they are urging the police to scale up their investigations, to do more, to bring the perpetrators. But more often, as they indicated in the Jumapon release, they said that up to date, even though the matter has been reported to the police at the Jumapon, nothing has been done. No one has been arrested yet. And so that is why they are urging them to, to expedite action in the investigation they are carrying out.
And for Blessing himself, what's his status now? We were getting from the accounts that you brought us yesterday that at least it's confirmed that he was physically assaulted. So what's his status now? How is he feeling?
Well, so he was discharged. He went to the hospital that particular night. The incident happened, went to the police, reported, was issued with a form, went to the police, the hospital, was treated and discharged. I'm told that he's been visiting the hospital, and today he went back to the hospital for some checkup. But he is doing fairly well. He was with management of the station.
Well, Richard Kujonyako, we're grateful that you've been able to give us the latest. We'll keep our eyes on this and then bring you some updates. Well, time now for international conversations. And today we're putting a focus on the growing concern that Russia is engaging in a grain war with grain stuck in Ukraine in the midst of rising food and energy crisis. Obviously, we need to speak to we know that the German foreign minister has been speaking on this and says that up to 50 million people, particularly in Africa and Middle East, will obviously face hunger in the coming months unless ways are found to release Ukrainian grain because of what's happening. Now, let's speak to Thomas Sparrow. He's with our partners, the DW, joining us now to help us understand what's happening. So, Thomas, first of all, how serious is this problem highlighted by the German foreign minister?
It is certainly a very serious problem, and that was something that German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock clearly stressed when she met her G7 counterparts here in Germany. She's describing it as a grain war that is being used deliberately by Russia against Ukraine, so no collateral damage or anything similar, but something that is being used deliberately by Russia, and that is creating many problems not only for Ukraine but internationally as well. German officials are saying that millions of people in poor countries, in particular in regions like the Middle East or Africa, will have severe problems when it comes to food security if this particular situation is not resolved soon. In particular, we're speaking about Ukrainian grains which are not being able to leave Ukraine because of current tensions there. So that's also why the G7 members, but internationally other countries as well, are trying to find alternative solutions to make sure that this problem can be resolved.
Well, so let's talk about Germany itself and other countries. What are they doing against this?
In particular, it's about trying to ensure that Ukraine can first and foremost continue to produce the grains. It's important to stress that Ukraine is one of the most important exporters of grains worldwide, and as such, this is something that has important effects worldwide. So that's one of the key discussions that were being led here in Germany by Mrs. Baerbock to try and ensure that Ukraine can continue to produce. But it's also about trying to find other ways for Ukraine to export those grains, in particular if their own ports are being blocked by Russia. So that's why different countries are talking now about so-called agricultural solidarity lanes to try and find different ways for Ukraine to export their grains. And one concrete example is being now carried out by Germany's railway, Deutsche Bahn. They are going to be sending special trains to Ukraine to try and transport back to Europe some of those grains that are now stuck in Ukraine. This is only one concrete example. There are further examples of what the G7 and other countries are doing, but in particular, it's about ensuring that Ukraine can produce and can obviously export its grains, and that as such, those countries that are most affected by that in places like Africa or the Middle East can then have food security in the short term, but also in the medium to long term as well.
And how is this affecting European consumers as well?
If you look at imports here in Germany of grains, you will notice that Russian grains and Ukrainian grains play a relatively small role here in Germany. Countries that are closer to Germany, like Poland or the Czech Republic, play a larger role there. So from that perspective, this is not something that would affect Germany very much specifically. But we have to understand this is something that goes well beyond just what countries import where. This is something that was, by the way, clear from Mrs. Baerbock's message, that affects the whole world, that it's an international problem, and as such Germany is obviously particularly affected, and consumers in Germany and in Europe are also affected by higher prices when it comes to some of those grains, but also energy prices if you look at the issue more broadly. And there is growing concern in Europe about what exactly that means. As such, the German government has already is bringing that forward, some of those packages to try and help consumers that are particularly affected by this increase in prices.
Thomas Sparrow, thank you. Let's bring you back here in Ghana. Obviously, we're focusing on one of our top stories, which has got to do with the Etemota Forest Reserve. Obviously, we understand the government may be giving further details on this later in the day. And also, we are looking forward to that exclusive interview on PM Express with the Sector Minister, Samuel Jinapor. But first of all, let's give you obviously some more reactions, which is greeting this. Arocha Ghana is one of the groups wading into this. Joining us now is Darrell Bosu, Deputy National Director of the Conservation Group. Darrell, earlier we lost you on the point that you were making about the questions that government must answer. And then you go ahead to talk about how practical this matter is, the fact that if we develop in that forest reserve, it may have some impact on us. Tell us more about it.
Yes, I think I was on the points that we tend to see development as only when we put up concrete jungles everywhere and we ignore the natural environment, which is crucial for our psychological well-being, as well as our health in general. And if you look at Accra, for example, if you are really now want a place to really go and relax after a hard day's job, the fatigue that's associated with all of that, and say that, okay, because we want to make some commercial benefit or get some commercial benefit from Achimota, we need to destroy it, then I guess we are undermining the essence of holistic development, which is actually what underpins also the sustainable development goals, and for which the natural environment is a crucial element of our urban spaces. And that is why we are of the view that no matter what the reason may be, government must take action to rather restore this patch of 5 square kilometers of forest, rather than opt for a development that is going to redevelop this whole area into a concrete jungle.
But, I mean, this is not the only temptation that we're seeing, the desire to redevelop the place. In fact, government is even complaining about how some persons are already encroaching on the area. So it appears that it's not just necessarily a problem with government. How do we collectively make the place much more of a reserved area for the greenery?
It is very sad to hear that coming from government and using that as an excuse for taking this action. First of all, government has the responsibility and the power to control every activity that is currently ongoing. So what stops them from taking those necessary actions to address encroachment? They have failed to do that, and then they are saying that, okay, it's already destroyed, so let's go ahead and cut it off and sell it off eventually, and which is a very unfortunate statement. And I don't believe that anybody really responsible for the management of our natural resources will come and make this excuse.
But then the long-term solution to this problem, I guess that's what we're all looking out for. What's the proposal from Arocha Ghana on this?
Yes, we are already suggesting that this decision was done in bad taste and then it needs to be withdrawn and action taken. Whilst the minister said that a master plan must be developed, this time we are asking for that master plan to look at restoring the forest in its entirety and really putting it to full forest function so the people in Accra can benefit from it. The current plan to, degazette it, yes, and also declassify it is not going to order well for the people of Accra and the country in general.
So just as you were recommending on some other projects that, well, let's try and form a green park. Let's do something that will still keep the area in its natural state, and yet there could be human activities within. Is that feasible for such an area as well, the Achimota area? Mm.
We go to the forest reserves all the time. We have nature trails. People go on it, Kakum, for example, and all of that. This is more like bringing a semblance of Kakum right in the middle of the city. And that's what we are talking about. So we don't really need to redevelop this area, but really look at the green options and also the green space and the services to provide for all of us in the long term.
If government fails to make a U-turn on these directives that we are learning of, particularly the executive instrument, what are we likely to see from Arocha Ghana?
So if you recall, these attempts to really regazette and also declassify this forest or redevelop it into other development uses did not start just now. It started long ago. And in the past, you saw that there was a lot of resistance and stopped government from going ahead with whatever they wanted to do. We are going to use all available channels to make sure that the right thing is done. This is just a discussion, and I'm sure there's a lot of background action that we are taking now, and we are going to get to the bottom of this.
In fact, a lot of reactions are greeting this. One of them is coming from a very renowned media personality, KSM. He talks about how confused we are as a nation, the fact that we're planting more trees and then we're taking such a decision. Are you aligned to that?
You know, I only stopped short of really coming up with that, but it actually shows the kind of thinking that we have. We think that because we are planting trees and we have this Green Ghana agenda going on, everything else that existed before as forests can go, which is very unfortunate. I think the understanding of sustainability needs to be done holistically, and we need to approach it looking at it at an integrated manner and also across sectors and more holistically. At the moment, I don't think we are doing that. So I certainly agree with it. Many people are asking me, what then is the essence of Green Ghana then? And I think these are legitimate questions that can come up because you have a government that is using taxpayers' money to spare the population to plant more trees, but on the other hand, is also taking active steps to get gazetted forests declassified, which is unfortunate. The two cannot work together.
Anyway, I'm grateful that you've been able to make it back here on the show, but unfortunately we don't have all of the time. Daryl Bosu, thank you. And that's all we have for you in this package of The Pulse. I am blessed to go and log on to myjoyonline.com. We have updates on our stories for you there. Right after this break, it's Let's Talk Showbiz.